This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know this that I know. For the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, I know it, I know.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is the Solve For Why Vlogcast, episode number 20 of season number 2. Of course, it is myself, Christian Soto, and my main man, co-host of all things in this building, Matt Berkey.
Steelers, baby, woo! 5-0.
That's nice.
Beat up on them brownies, per usual.
You hate those guys.
Yeah, we hate those guys.
There's like a Cleveland-Pittsburgh rivalry, right?
Yeah, but it's like straight disrespect.
It's
So like,
one-way
we also hate Baltimore, but Baltimore's competitive,
Mm.
right? So it's a real rivalry. Like, there's a little bit of mutual respect. We hate you, but like, you know, we respect you because you're a competitor.
Is it like only a football thing or like all sports?
Because
Because it's how about hockey?
Well, so it doesn't really work in any other sport. In baseball, Pittsburgh and Cleveland are NL, AL, so they literally never play.
Yeah,
And then they don't have a hockey team. We don't have a basketball team.
got it.
So there's just like no crowd. It's just this, man.
Just this.
It's just blood on the gridiron.
It's like when high school, it's like when two high school are close to each other.
Oh,
There.
we hated Apollo Ridge, man. They were the other rural town across the river. Somehow they were rednecks and we were just like, you know, upstanding citizens.
Jesus Christ.
We called them scum.
I woke up this morning and my eye was swollen again and I was like, fuck. So I text Dr. Edwards, that of which I heard was on this podcast for a later date.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, man, the eye is nothing to play with. You should go check it out. And I was 2 minutes later, I was in the hospital, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, nope.
You went to a hospital?
Yeah, because I went to the urgent care and it was like an hour wait. And I was like, bro, I have insurance. Like, I'm going to the hospital.
Yeah,
Like,
all right.
like I was like, forget it. I'm not going to wait an hour. So I just went to the hospital. They put me under like some black light, bro. This shit was crazy right now.
What'd they say?
I don't know. They were like, they gave me some like ointment thing.
Did they diagnose it?
No, they were like, okay, like you still have this eye, and then like this is like irritated or whatever. And they were like, okay, like here's this ointment. Have this follow up with some like Indian doctor or whatever. And I was like, all right, cool.
That follow-up's the biggest bullshit scam in all of medicine.
Is it?
Yeah, it's always just like, here's a way that you're going to give me an extra $100 for me to say that like our protocols worked, which you could just see if it heals.
That's true.
Right? Like, I'm trying to think the last time I had a follow-up. I think it was like 6 months post-op for my ACL. They're not going to tell me anything. They're not giving me an MRI.
Yeah.
They're not doing any sort of, like, a doctor's going to go in there and he's going to go like this with my knee and like bend it a few times and be like, oh, your mobility seems great. It's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. I'm walking, of course. It's fine.
Oh man, that's funny. But anyway, before that, we were playing a little bit of 50-100. A lot of people were following along on Instagram. Is this the part where I'm supposed to say, like, if you don't follow us on Instagram, it's Christian Soto TV and Berkey 11, and then like
Solve
a little
For Why TV.
Then the Solve For Why TV as well. And then the little graphics come up at the bottom.
Yeah,
oh, no, that's awesome.
that's what we got a team for.
Yeah. Okay, so then we were playing some 50-100 at the win.
Whoa. I started at 100, 200.
Excuse me.
Just
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm not
It was an interesting day, right? Because we both went down there. There's usually only one game running, right? But this was an unusual circumstance where there was actually 2 games that of high stakes. Yours was a clear private game. Mine was like bordering on a private game for sure. I would say that they were both private.
I feel like yours was relatively public.
I
mean, yeah, I guess it was private in the sense that the people in the game like had a say.
Yeah.
If somebody got a seat.
Yeah.
But like Knock got a seat.
But Knock got a seat 7 hours into the game.
Fair.
Like Knock got a seat because Knock is always a lurking.
Well, that's kind of like what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So it was like it was like when we ran out of people.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, Knock, I guess you can sit. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it was public-ish.
Yeah.
But yours was completely private. Okay, so interesting situation. That's actually That might have been the first time that's ever happened between you and I, where like we go to a place and play two different high stake games.
Yeah. I mean, it happens a lot during like big gambling times of the year, but usually the stakes differ enough where so like there have been times in the past where I've been like first up to the big game at Aria, but it's like Super Bowl or March Madness or something of that effect. And there's like a secondary game that's like half the stakes.
Right.
So they're playing like 3-6-12. We're playing like 2-4. And it's almost like a feeder game. Like as somebody busts or leaves or whatever, like you pull from the 2-4 game.
Yeah.
This was weird that they were so close in stakes.
I mean, they were half the stakes.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But like,
but it doesn't feel the same.
51
right?
and 1-2 feel very
They're
comparable.
very similar. Yeah, they're very similar. Okay, so then you play, and you do well in the 100, 200
we
game.
got them.
You come down and start playing in my game after a short period of time. I was buried, dude. I was like so annoyed the whole time.
Yeah, I wouldn't let you leave.
Yeah, you wouldn't let me leave. And I was like, bro, I've lost at least 15-7 deuces for 300 a pop.
You walked for a half hour at the end of the night and you missed 4 bounties
Thank God.
in that half hour.
No, but bro.
I don't understand how, you know what? Like, that's the mark of a tight game is like when the 7 deuce just keeps getting through.
Yeah, for sure. It got through all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I was down probably like 17,000 at peak buried.
Yeah.
Right. And you came in. When you came in, I was still down 17,000. I just like ran it up. Like I just spun it back to even.
Mm.
And I felt so great. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Usually you just like, your destiny's sealed. You
Right.
know, like it's just like, bro, there's just no way. Like you're just stuck, whatever. But the talk of the town was not me getting even.
No.
The talk of the town that I got endless messages was like, yo, Berkey slow rolled someone with quads. And I was like, I mean, not really, but I get it. So, okay, walk me through that spot.
I mean, yeah, it was a major nit roll,
Yeah.
obviously. But it was also one of those scenarios where I think like I would hero fold some pretty big fucking hands here.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a big difference between like on this particular texture, like quad 9s and jacks full.
No.
So it basically just because of the line. The line was so fucking weird. It's the only reason I considered it. If like the same exact board had come out with a different line, I would have just snapped river.
Yeah.
Because I would have discounted like the hands that beat me. But so effectively what it was, I opened 9s in the hijack to 300 button calls. And then one of our friendly players calls the small blind. So there is 1,000 in the pot. We take a flop of 9-9-7 with the 9 of clubs. Checks to me. I check. Button stabs for third pot. Small blind calls. I call.
Yeah.
So now there's 1,900 in the pot.
I was already kind of looking at you funny. Like when you overcalled there,
Yeah.
I was like, yo, what you got, bro? Like, what you got? I was like,
I could have some.
I was like, you have aces?
I could have like some Jack 10 that have bad blockers.
Yeah, I was
to the
like,
9.
you got aces or you got Jack 10? What you got?
Yeah.
You got enough
Aces would have made sense too. So the turn is now the Jack of clubs. So it's Jack of clubs, 9 of clubs, 9-7.
Yes.
Checks to me again. I check. Button now overbets 2,500 into 1,900.
Yeah, shady.
Not really a thing. I don't think.
No.
Not 3-ways.
No.
I don't really see a 9 doing this.
Correct.
And when his best hands don't do it, I definitely don't see 10-8 doing this.
No.
Because I can just have jacks or 7s.
10-8 of clubs makes sense.
Yeah, a little bit, but like that's one. It's
One
one combo,
combo.
and it's not a bluff.
Right.
It's the nut.
the nut.
Well, it's not the nuts, but it's the nut straight.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. Like all the value, in my opinion, especially 3-ways, wants to go like 3/4 pot.
Correct. Makes sense.
And align it with like some reasonable bluffs, like maybe king queen of clubs and other hands that he may have stabbed flop with that turn backdoors. Good backdoor properties.
Yeah.
So small blind tanks forever and folds, which would love to know what that hand was.
Yeah, that's weird. Maybe a jack.
Maybe 8s. I think it might be like exactly 8s.
You don't think you would fold a jack? Probably not.
It's tough to peel. How could he peel a jack?
Jack 10.
Yeah, I guess that would be like the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Jack 10 or 8s would make sense
Yeah.
to me. Obviously, he's a loose player. He's
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
loose passive, but so obviously I call, and I considered raising because it's like, well, maybe I mean I have quads, so like maybe I just cooled him off and he has 7s or 10-8, and if he has 10-8, I don't like want a bad river where I can't stack him. But then again, I'm just like, he just has way more. This is a bluff. Like, this is just a bluff. He's overbetting in a spot where, like, overbetting's not really preferred. So it's definitely just a bluff. And that's what's running through my mind prior to the river coming out. It's like, he's 100% bluffing turn. The river's the 10 of clubs, completing 3 straight flushes.
Yeah.
So now 8-6 of clubs is a straight flush. Queen 8 of clubs is a straight flush. And King Queen of clubs is a straight flush. And I think he's capable of having all of them as a button flatter. So I'm just kind of like, okay. In my head, I was just like, okay, this is a good card for him to potentially follow through on. But when I checked to him, I expected,
bet 75%.
pot and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
He rips for 3x pot.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So he jams 20,000 into 65 or 68, something like that. And now I'm just like, well, fuck. How does he ever have the naked queen of clubs? Because that's the only hand to run this with.
Right.
That's a bluff, right? Like, you're not doing it with the 8 of clubs. That's a straight. You're going to either value bet and try to get called by worse, or you're just going to check down and hope to win. So, like,
for sure,
ruling out having a naked 8 here, like, he doesn't have pocket 8s with the 8 of clubs.
No.
He doesn't have pocket queens.
No.
Like, that's really not a thing, especially with this line work. I guess
not the turnover bit, though.
It would add up a little bit better, I suppose, but not 3 ways.
Yeah.
Somebody has a 9 in that instance, So I'm just like, I'm thinking about this because I'm fucking grossed out, man. It's like King Queen of clubs makes a whole lot of fucking sense here.
Yeah.
So does Queen 8 and so does 8-6. Like, they're all air balls on the turn, and they just drilled their dream river. And they also all, like, with the exception of 8-6, they all block me having a better hand. So I'm just like, kind of like, I mean, am I really gonna fold quads tonight? But I'm just like super locked in. And honestly, I hate to say it, but like, I was like trying to pick up on something because I thought it was that close.
Yeah.
Like, I think people under bluff here enough.
Oh, for sure. He needs to be reaching.
Yeah. And like, I just don't see any worse value. Like, I don't even think 7s can shove because I could just have jacks full as played.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's just like, that just seems crazy. I could also have King Queen of clubs, though. It's like pretty low probability.
Yeah,
so
it's probably
just,
like the only,
it just seems like all of this just seems like so low. I could have 9-7. I could have Jack 9. I could have jacks. I could just have like all these really good hands where 7s just can't 3x overbet shove. So no, I can't find any value, right? Like, I'm not beating any value in my opinion.
I see.
I just don't think that's feasible.
Yeah,
and I have quads. So it's like, I'm not beating any value any longer, and I have to start to find the bluffs. And I'm just like, where the fuck am I pulling the naked queen of clubs from?
So why'd you call?
Because I had quads. And like, honestly, like, I kind of waited him out a little bit, and I thought I picked up on something too. So I finally called. First of all, I announced it. I'm like, yo, I'm knit rolling. I have quads here. This is gross.
I didn't even hear that when you said that because I had my headphones on.
Yeah. Well, that was like kind of where, from that point forward, I noticed a real change in demeanor. And I finally call, and he just slides his hand in the muck before I even table my hand.
Yeah.
But then I felt obligated to table because, like, I didn't want him to think I was running an angle, and I really had a 7.
The table exploded when you did that. Like, when you showed quads, I tried to get your back. I was like, listen, Berkey's going broke. All right, like, let him live.
Yeah,
It's all good. Like he's.
I'd rather people think that I slow rolled him, to be honest. Like, this Berkey guy's a prick. He just fucking tanked for 4 minutes with quads to slow roll the shit out of me.
This guy flew from Chicago to play against Matt Berkey and then got slow rolled.
Yeah, he has a story now. I'm sorry, man. Honestly, he handled it really well. I don't know his name, but
I think his name was Brian.
Yeah, I do apologize for the torturous.
I think like when you break it down like that, it's very reasonable. One thing that did happen after the hand, though, that I do tell like people, especially people that like are newer to high stakes and stuff, is you actually covered him, and he was paying you out of pocket to keep his chips intact, because he had like hundreds and stuff. So he went into his bag to give you like 20,000, right? And he was about to hand you 20,000 in cash or big chips, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, wait, hold on. Berkey Berkey covers you. You don't have 20,000.
Yeah.
So then broke down his stack, and I think
It was like a $900 difference.
It was like a $900 difference, but that happens.
Yeah,
that happens all the time. Like he would have overpaid you.
It's easy to get like rattled in that spot and just like want to be done with it and move on.
Yeah, but you're just like, oh, like I'm all in. Like
Yeah.
you're effectively thinking like, or wait, was it the other way around? He covered you.
No, I covered him, but I think he thought he covered me.
Okay, either way, like it was a $900 difference that he saved.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times like people just like pay whatever the number is, and move on.
Yeah.
Some more news that came out besides us, you know, playing high stakes and stuff, and I got even and you won a bunch of money, is a little bit of a sad announcement. Sam Grizzle passed. I didn't get to experience too much Sam Grizzle in my day, but I did play with him a couple times at 510 at the Win.
Yeah.
And the guy like will go down in history, man.
Yeah, he's a character.
Like, I will say that Sam Grizzle loves Solve For Why. Like, this guy, I don't know how he found us.
It was from Conrad.
But yeah, it was probably Conrad.
Yeah.
Like, he would just be like, Christian, me and you, we know what's going on. Like, and then he would just like make fun of all these nits. Like, and then he'd be like, you're going to race again, Christian? Like, and then he would just sit there like, I gotta do the Sam. He would just sit there, always like this. And then just like super chilling, like just ready. Like, and he was cool, dude. But there are some legendary stories of Sam. And one of them was him punching Phil Hellmuth. I don't know if that happened or not, but the story is that it happened.
That was my first introduction to him, was the Grizzle Hellmuth beef on like WSOP coverage.
Yeah.
So this had to be like back in 05 maybe.
I already punched him in the face like right after that. Like,
I don't know. I doubt it. But
I don't know, man. Sam looked like a tough guy at that time, man.
Yeah.
And then the other story that I heard is the one where he was playing a mixed game and then potentially like he ran it all the way down.
So Todd Brunson told me this story.
Okay, go ahead.
Apparently, I don't know how accurate it is, but I've told it before and nobody's corrected me on it. So I assume it's pretty accurate. Todd told me that Grizzle was getting backed into like an 800, 1600 stud game at Commerce.
Okay.
And
that's a pretty large game.
Yeah. So he was in for like some amount. I don't know, whatever it was. It must have been like 100K, something to that effect. And he was winner by one big bet. So he was up $1,600.
Okay.
Or maybe two big bets, 3,200, something like that. And his backer comes down and pulls him from the game. And Grizzle's like, no, you can't pull me from this game. Like, it's too good. I'm smashing, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think he had like run it down and then got back up or whatever. And his backer's like, no, like, you know, you're out. And he's like, all right, well, give me my half. So he gives him his 1,600. And Sam sits there with one big bet and like runs it up to like 6 figures or something like that.
What a legend, dude.
But if I remember the story correctly, he played for like days to like run it up to over 6 figures or something of that nature. And then apparently like ran it all the way back down to having just enough to buy into the tournament, whatever they were running during.
It was like a 10K or something.
Yeah, during like LAPC or whatever. I don't think it was a 10K, but like whatever it was. Goes up, plays it, smashes it, comes back down to the stud game, and ends up having to ask somebody for cab fare when he was leaving.
Wow.
Like 4 or 5 days later.
There's no stories like that anymore, man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like folklore because like I definitely didn't get all the details right for sure.
But some of that happened.
Yeah.
Like, but wait, even if 75% of that happened, that's
right.
a lot.
Right. Depending upon like which details are accurate, like did he actually have one big bet that he turned into 100K? Like that.
Like even if he had 10 big bets, like that's like 16K to 100K, and then back down, then play the tournament, and it's like okay, maybe it wasn't a 10K, it was a 3,500, but he won it. Like it's like then he got that 100K and said, "Fuck my backer," and then I'm gonna take all my action. Sat down, and then he's like, fuck.
Some people, man, I say this all the time, like, I'll never be rich. I'm just allergic to money. And like, that's the allergy right there. Where it's just like, you're always shooting for the high score.
That's so insane, man. The thing is, like, I was listening to Jason Kuhn. He was having an interview with Dipthron. And he's like, like some guys like they don't need, like, we shouldn't have biographies of certain poker players. He's like, no one wants a biography of me. What are they gonna be like? Oh, I wake up in the morning, lift weights, and drink my protein shake. You need the biography of Phil Ivey. Like, it's like, I woke up in the morning, shot some dice. Like,
No, I think he's right and he's wrong. I think he's 100% right about like highlighting the characters. We just aren't going to have any of those old school legendary gamblers because the game is much more analytical now.
yeah.
Like we understand when we're giving things up and people don't want to willfully gamble without an edge. But I think he's wrong that like he's an interesting fucking dude. Like Jason's background is
specifically,
yeah, exactly.
Do we want the biography of Ben Solsky?
Right.
It's like he went to college, got a philosophy degree.
Right.
Now he's like sitting there. He has a walking treadmill in front of his fucking computer. It's like, okay, like what the fuck?
I mean, yeah, like we're not gonna make.
Sorry,
a movie.
Sauce. I love you, but like, goddamn.
Yeah, we're not gonna make a movie out of it, right? Like that's definitely not a thing. Yeah, I mean, like this always turns around to like we have a marketing problem in this community for sure.
Would you ever get a walking desk? Is that what it's called? Walking desk?
Jason's actually gonna give me one. I literally just
Really?
spoke with him yesterday. Him and his now wife Bianca are moving into another place and they're getting rid of a bunch of stuff. So he's like, I have a standing desk and a treadmill. He's like, I can't walk and play at the same time, but maybe some people can. I don't know if I can. I'm gonna try.
Sauce has like videos of him doing that.
Yeah.
Like he's literally teaching while walking.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I think there would be a better chance of me like writing while walking.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which would actually be great because I struggle a ton to just like sit and stare at a screen and like put words to paper.
So the characters, right? So there's some interviews that came out with Ivy and Barry Greenstein.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know this, but like Barry Greenstein and Ivy are like best friends.
Yeah, you don't remember the Poker Road days?
I remember that, but I thought like I didn't know they were best friends. I thought they were just doing something together.
Nah, he would never do that for somebody he didn't consider like family.
I know that now because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like I thought Barry Greenstein.
So he used to follow him with like a flip phone on like private jets and shit and like just film all that stuff.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know they were like best friends though. I thought they were just like,
Poker Road was so ahead of its time. I'm so sorry it didn't succeed.
yeah,
Like I think the landscape as is today would be very, very different if Poker Road had turned into like what Greenstein envisioned.
I think it was more real though. Like, so the Poker Road, from what I remember, right? I think there's probably still some clips on YouTube and stuff if people find them, but there was no like hand history section.
Right.
It was just like, listen, we're on the road. Ivy's shooting some dice. We were in Paris. Then they're in London.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, you got a private room to shoot some dice. And then it's like, hey, tell us a story about the time that you were like,
it was vlogging before it was a thing.
but
right?
it was more like stories and action. Not,
100%. And then the podcast was very much the same. It was Gavin Smith, Joe Seabach, and then there was a host of others. I think Ali Najad was on there at one point. I think that Tuck I don't think Tuck started there.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Tuck started with all his stuff probably
With the bike.
Was with bike.
Yeah. But anyway, there was a litany of hosts that came through the podcast. Amanda Leatherman was on there, I believe, briefly.
Wow, that's early.
And it was incredible. Like, at the time, we thought we were getting like this great insight to a high level professional in Gavin Smith. Like he was the celeb of the pod. Like Scott Huff was another one of the hosts. Ali Najad, all these guys. They were kind of like the up and comers. They're getting into the game, right? Like Ali was getting big into mix, and Scott, I believe, was like kind of pursuing tournaments.
Dude, I had no idea Ali was even a pro. Like, no offense, no shots fired. Like,
Well,
no
it's just
disrespect.
such a good commentator.
Yeah, no disrespect. I just had no clue.
Yeah.
Like, until recently when I saw him actually playing,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait, like you play a lot.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I play mix. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Also,
Yeah.
I think like no limit players like don't know.
We forget
anymore.
about that.
Like,
world.
you don't know that other people play other games. Like,
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah. And then like Seabach was, Greenstein's stepson and was like really attempting to rise through the ranks. And you just heard that, right? Like they traveled together. They did the pod on the road. They would just like talk about tournament stuff. It was literally like you felt like, because all of us were just like feeling our way through this landscape. We didn't have guides.
Mm-hmm.
So like Poker Road was kind of just like this extension of your own personal community of a bunch of dudes that you get to know pretty well that are doing the same thing. It was so ahead of its time, right? It was like it had a forum, it had this vlog with Ivy.
I remember the forum concept was obviously like I don't remember much, but I remember you had to be like a pro
To start a thread.
To start. Yeah.
I remember Mosin was like playing at Foxwoods and got on Greenstein's table, and Greenstein liked him and gave him like the red status on Poker Road Forum. And I remember him telling me about it. He's like, yeah, me and Barry were cool. I got red status on Poker Road. And I was just like, that's so fucking awesome.
That's crazy.
Like, you get to make posts.
Now
I didn't give a shit. Now I wouldn't give a shit at all. We're so jaded. We're so spoiled by like how much content is actually out there.
So yeah, I did want to go back to that content, right? So Ivy's doing interviews with Barry on YouTube. I thought the interviews were like
yeah, what's this for?
I'm not sure what's going on.
Like
it
Triton, but I couldn't
it
tell.
said Poker Kings.
Oh, that's 100% what it is, because I think that JRB just like kind of leaked out his avatar. I think they're going to be making a big push for an app.
I see. That makes a lot of sense now. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that whole wave, the production was very well done.
Yeah,
I thought the production was extremely well done. I think Barry's looked the same for the last 20 years. I don't know.
it's really crazy.
Like
25 years ago, I'd be like, yo, he's old. And now
Yeah.
25 years later, it's like, man, he looks fucking good.
yeah, it's like he's still the same. Like, what is Barry doing? Like,
But
still-
he'll tell you that the secret to all this is sex.
yeah, I know.
Have you read Ace on the River?
No.
It's actually a really good read. I haven't read it probably for a decade, but it really was a good like insight to how to navigate the professional world. And he puts a real big emphasis on being able to fuck. He's just like, yeah, you go on the road, you gotta like, you gotta bring a girl with you.
Yo, me and Barry about to go to DR, bro. Like me and Barry about to go to DR. Me and Barry about to hit every single spot.
He doesn't want to go to DR. He wants to go to the Philippines.
All right, let's see. The guy has a taste.
Yeah.
He has his taste. There's there's a little bit of chinitas out there in DR.
What?
You don't know what chinitas is?
No.
Like Chinese girls,
Oh, okay.
like chinitas.
I don't speak Spanish, man.
Yeah, but I'm incorporating you. Just
Okay.
like I learned little words from you, yinzer, like like chinitas.
Mhm. Sure.
Okay, I'm crazy, bro. All right, okay, that was really good content, but I think the part that we were getting to was there are no legends, and I think you told me this when we were watching a little bit of the Ivy stuff, and it kind of comes back to like the Sam Grizzle, like all these legendary stories, Ivy's, all the legendary stories. Everybody loves Ivy stories.
Yeah.
Where are the stories from today? Like, it's like, I don't want to hear about.
Everybody's cool, calm, and calculated, man.
Yeah, like where are the stories, man? Like, we need some. You know who has the stories that doesn't say it? Is Bryn Kenny.
Yeah, probably.
I think Bryn Kenny has some stories in the locked in tuck.
Well, he definitely has like some famous like paths of busting like infinite rolls
I've seen him,
and then running it back up.
I've seen some interviews with Bryn Kenny. He's like, yeah, I used to bet on commodities. So he would bet like piles on commodities.
Yeah, it seems like a smart, sharp play.
He would just bet on commodities.
The thing is, like, you just don't see that now because you get scorned for it. It's not celebrated in the community at all to be a gambler, right? It's celebrated to be a calculated killer. Nobody who takes their shot and misses is going to be revered. And even those who take their shot and get there are just going to be seen as lucky.
So let's talk about that. We were talking a little bit about the poker ladder on our way here in the car. And the interesting part about it, right, is when you even live or online, you play, let's just take the live example, right? It's like 1-2 no limit, right? That's the bottom. Then you go from 1-2, whatever. There's like a little bit of a half a step up to 1-3, depending where you live.
Yeah.
Then it's 2-5. Then there's like slight variations of 2-5.
Yeah,
right?
there are like interval steps in all of these.
Right.
Where
So
the
it's like
cap changes.
Yeah, 2-5, 500, 2-5 up to 1500. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like there's like another half step up. Then it's 5-10, 1500, 5-10, no cap.
Mhm.
Right. And then from there you go straight 10-20. Then there's like a little bit of variation there where it's like this 1020.
Well, the game just becomes
forward-
versatile.
Right, it's very exactly.
Yeah.
You've said this in other podcasts where it was like, okay, is either 1020-40 or is 1020 deep or is 1020 just standard? You know,
It's basically,
Yeah.
I think it just basically accommodates
the
who's
players.
playing. Yeah.
Correct.
Like, oh, we have a guy who wants to play bigger, but like we're obviously not going to get a 51 game going.
Correct. But then the ladder stops. I think pretty much across the board around the country, 1020 is often the biggest game available. Unless other things are going on, right? So then from there, it's like 1020. The next step is usually 5100. And that's not normal, right? So effectively the ladder has stopped and you have to get creative with the way you move.
Even 50-100 is not common.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The next step, sorry, excuse me. The next step is 50-100 when available.
Right. That's like the
Right.
entry into the rare air.
Right.
But I feel like 50-100 is probably the least common stake of quote unquote high stakes.
Yeah.
And all of the stakes are non-common or not common.
Yes.
Right. Like, and this is funny too, because like, you know, I've been in Vegas since 2008. I can count on my hand maybe the amount of times I've seen 25-50 run. I'm exaggerating, obviously.
It doesn't
but,
run
like,
often, though. Yeah.
It's not a common game at all because obviously 10-20 just becomes 20-40 and the difference is minimal.
Mhm.
It's just the chip in play, right? And like honestly, it's a weird phenomenon, but live cash players specifically don't use $25 chips very often.
That's a West Coast thing.
Yeah, I guess.
It's
Yeah,
West
you play like 10-25 back
Yeah.
east,
Mhm.
and then it becomes 25-50.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't think we'll see much of that moving forward in the future. I think you'll see more of an adaptation of what you see in the West Coast because it monkey wrenches The Sims if you do the 10-25 or if you do 25-25, right? Like people want what they're comfortable with, which hopefully will go the opposite way. Hopefully we'll steer into like what's or what's not comfortable. But like, you know, those pre-solved ranges make a lot less sense whenever the small blind is not half.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, when it's significantly less or when it's equal to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a student who plays in a 5-5 game and they were kind of asking like, you know, okay, so it folds to me in the small blind and it's a time game, so I'm not chopping. What does my strategy look like? And it's like, wow, this got a little weird because you have the option to check.
That is weird.
Right? So like now you're basically forced into having a limp strategy, which in simplification, you could just have a raise fold strategy.
Right.
It's like if it's 2-5, you can just muck.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess like to some degree those solves are probably out there because 2-5 does exist and people are running them.
Yeah, but it's a little different. Okay, so then what we were saying was, how does one go about like, okay, I have a good example. I mean, I'm probably the prime example in this scenario is someone that can play all variations of 5-10 for sure, play all variations of 10-20, but then has to definitely have the wherewithal of when 50-100 pops up or bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to play? How do I play? You know, how do I get involved in the scene? Like, so if you're wearing my shoes, like what would you do? And then I'll kind of like fill in the gaps of like,
I mean,
the things
I feel
do.
like the only difference between you and me is the amount of hours we're committing to this. Because like you still have to put in pretty high volume at like 5-10, 10-20, where I feel like my time's probably better served doing other things. But yeah, as far as like finding out when games are running, putting yourself in a position to get in them. I mean, first and foremost, you want to be valuable enough that people feel necessary to extend that courtesy to get a hold of you. Yeah. Right. Like I get in a lot of games that 10 years ago I wouldn't have gotten into.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
It's just the difference between you know, having been on TV and people seeing the way I play and like wanting that action versus like just thinking maybe I'm good at action, but not necessarily being able to confirm if I'm winning or not. So I think that that's worth a lot. I think networking obviously is worth a ton, but also just like playing in high traffic areas. Yeah. Which makes sense. Like, you know,
just being in the building a lot of
times.
Too,
it's like if 10-20 is running at Bellagio, then that's the most probable place to have 50-100.
Yes. Yeah, being in the building, like a lot of times, like I'll send you a text message like, hey, this person just walked in, a game might pop. Yeah. You know, like, It's just like, like just being in the scene, like
very critical to have like
right.
guys that are putting in volume being your scouts.
Right, exactly.
So
like,
finding 5 or 6 guys that are grinding all different schedules that will be in the building at different hours, and just having them be on the lookout for like anything that looks like it may be a bigger game.
For sure. And the thing is, like, you can't always be in action, right? Like we kind of spoke about this like while on our way here. It's like like myself and you and another person, right? Like let's say there's 4 of us, right? Yeah. Regardless, like there's probably 3 of us, but whatever, there's 4 of us. You might get in a game that I won't be in a game, or I might get in a game that you're not going to play. And then this person might be in a TV game that like we're not in, and then these kind of things. But like the group is putting in X amount of hours. And if you could if each person can get action like bought and sold from one another in different spots, it's like maintaining yourself in action seems like it's going to be plus EV, because you're only going to get so many high stakes hours per year, no matter who you are.
And I mean, like, this is proven throughout the decades of like the guys who are here and who made it, right? Like the Seaver Ike connection, the ship at Halabalas. Like, I'm listening to that book right now. It's so good. It's so good. It should be a movie. I mean, it would be like an awful movie, like a Tucker Max movie, but like it's so hilariously good. But like, they did a lot of that too, where it's just like look at that crew.
Yeah.
Of Roble, Durr, Gelfond, Benefield, Peter Jetton, like all of them are successful. And
Peter Jetton is like, he's like an anomaly to me, man. Like, only because I know so little about him, except from the fact that he was best friends with Durr, and then he tried to create videos for Run It Once, and then he said that the Run It Once community was better than him, so he quit. And then now I see him playing Triton. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, what's going on, man? Like, either they were better than you or not. And it's like, maybe they were,
maybe
but
he just
maybe
didn't see the value in communicating like what he thought was his edge.
Yeah, his edge is like, listen, I'm friends with Durr, and like we about to do this thing. Yeah, like, and I don't want to tell you.
Yeah, I'm just getting into that part of the story. Like, they just introduced Durr. Peter was actually introduced prior. I think that they had a mutual friend. I haven't figured out like who literally everybody is in the crew, because there's so many. They only use the online monikers. Yeah, and like I wasn't familiar with some of them, but it's really awesome to listen to. And yeah, it's just like, it's proven like these guys effectively create hedges, or like hedge funds. Yeah, poker hedge funds, right? And it's so smart to do. So like here's a good example. Like say we took our collective crew, right? We took like you, me, and then 3 or 4 other guys that we're pretty close with that are happy to like chop up action a little bit. And we all pool our money and we say, okay, here's the way it's going to work. Anytime any one person is in play, the fund is going to have 30% of them. Okay. And then they're free to do whatever they want with the other 70. They can keep it, or they can sell some of it to the fund if they feel like they're extended, right? Yeah. So say we all put up $100K. We have a $500,000 fund between 5 of us. Yeah. At any given time, the fund is going to have 30% of anybody's action who's in play. And then if they want to sell a greater piece because they feel overextended, then they do so, right? And we just all make it our priority that we're only going to take a distribution once a year from the fund, right? Okay. Not only do you put yourself in a position where you're able to play a $500,000 or games where like you have basically a $500,000 bankroll instead of like your 100K, but you also put yourself in a position where the 5 of you are collectively growing together. So now you're getting access to games that you wouldn't otherwise have. Yes. You have the ability to, network within the 5 of you, but also like chop up action in a big way. Big tournament scores now benefit the collective as well as the individual. That's huge. It's just, it's the way that people rise to the top. And I don't think that that's understood well enough, because one, that has kind of just, it's kind of been less necessary in the past 5 to 8 years, because selling has become such a common occurrence in the community, and buying is like, relatively lucrative if you're good about cherry picking. But then 2, online in America just like isn't really a thing. Yeah. So these pods aren't forming as easily here, right? Like people aren't collectively coming together from all ends of the United States and just meeting in this online forum and like getting to know one another and like, you know,
Yeah.
like if you, for example, if you look at the Ship at Hall of Ballers, it's like they're from all over. They're from the Midwest. They're from the East Coast. They're from Texas. They're from.
But they all had a lot of respect for each other because they played online together.
Yeah, they basically all like came together.
Yeah.
In the 2+2 realm.
The live realm is.
It gets dicier when you just play with the live realm though, because now there might be a situation where like 3 of you are in a game.
Yeah.
And you're all chopping it up.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so small. Like people say this a lot, like, oh, the high stakes world is small, but it really is. Like, it really, really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's like now, like me teetering into that world is just like, man, there's like maybe there's like 50 of us in town.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, okay. And it's like even LA, like you start knowing like who's in LA just because it's so close.
Right.
And like, you know, we trade people back and forth kind of.
Yeah.
So it's like such a small collective of people.
And there's such a small number of games available. Like,
correct.
Like even that 50-100 game, it's like I was jonesing to play because the game's really fucking good, and I just popped off a big score in the 1-2 game. But then I'm also thinking to myself, it's like, well, if I play, then I have none of chin, or I could just pass and just like take a chunk of chin.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's worth more of my time? Like me taking all of myself and having none of you, or me just going home and going to bed and then just like taking a piece of you.
Yeah. Either one's fine.
Yeah, both of them are obviously really profitable, and it's just a matter of like how I want to spend my time and stuff like that.
I mean, like if you're gonna make quads, you know, I think you should sit.
Oh man, the funniest part too, and like this is obviously like a silly thing to point to because it doesn't matter, but I waited for that seat for all of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And in that 15 minutes, Brandon Myers ran kings into aces twice.
Yeah. Allegedly, it was queens into aces the second time.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
sure.
I thought.
No, I thought it was kings into aces twice also.
Okay,
but
so he ran
fine.
kings into aces to get stacked, and then queens into aces to get stacked, and then he has to leave.
Yeah.
Like he quits the game, right? I don't know how many buy-ins it was worth, but
it was he was down 20,000. Yeah, so
Okay.
2 buy-ins.
Okay, yeah, that's not too bad. I thought like the first one was worse.
Well, he was winning.
I see.
So yeah.
Okay, so it was a 40K pot with the kings
Right,
versus
right.
aces. Okay, yeah, cool. So he vacates the seat. No more than 2 hours later, I'm winning a 40K pot,
No.
40K plus pot with quads
Yeah.
versus an airball.
You got the luck. Like the bad luck ran out.
Right as I went to sit down in the seat, I go, all right, let's go. All the shit luck's out of this seat. There's no way I'm getting coolered.
It's maybe it's
There's obviously nothing to it, but it's just kind of funny.
but it's kind of funny. It is funny.
way it all
Sometimes you
works
do
out.
feel like you get the lucky seat. Like,
Yeah.
Some days you do. Some days you don't. Man, yeah, it's wild. I am curious to see what that pops up with like the Ivy stuff. Like, yeah, Ivy stories are always interesting. It's interesting because Durr was doing he's been doing kind of hand histories for Triton.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen them, like the one where like they shut off the lights on him.
No.
Okay,
Is it good?
It's pretty
I
funny.
mean, you love Dare, so.
Oh man, the guy could do no wrong. He's the only one left. I've said this a couple times. Like I had a couple like idols, like it was like Durr, Jay Carver, Vanessa, and these people were like, I met Jay Carver and Vanessa, and they're great people, but they're not the same like on TV. Like it's like, you know, I met Vanessa, she was blasted drunk. I'm like, okay, like I guess she's cool though.
That was great.
Like Jay Carver, like he was like, you should fold, and I'm like, okay, I don't relax, bro. Like, oh, okay. And then Durr, I gotta keep the mystique going. I'm not just gonna it's gonna run away one of these days. I don't know. Okay, but they both are doing like their own thing. It seems like they're both trying to be like a little bit in the limelight again ish, or
Yeah.
they just have like deals, which is the more
I think their
likely of
business connections are what's incentivizing this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they've been in Macau for the better part of a decade now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're pretty looped in with like Fua and all the guys that are behind Triton and behind Kings. And,
Yeah.
you know, I imagine that this is all business.
They're in the mix.
Yeah.
They're in the mix. Okay, we have 2 topics. You get to pick one. Only one though.
Okay.
Next week we'll save. We can talk about Pad's Twitter thread messages.
Sure.
Or we can talk about what's about to happen in 2 weeks, which is Daniel Negreanu versus Doug Polk, finally coming to a pinnacle.
Mm-hmm.
Which one you want?
I mean, I think it's more relevant to save the Negreanu one.
Okay.
But also, I don't think there's a whole lot to unpack from the Pads thread.
Okay, quick thing with the Pads thing, right? We don't have to unpack it, but effectively what he's saying is that when people think in a group, then it harms the entirety of the collective, because people are either afraid to go against the grain. That's pretty much it, right? Yeah.
I actually think his tweet is really relevant, but perhaps hastily worded, because it makes it sound like community is a bad thing.
Paz been going a little spicy lately. Like in the
I like that.
In the last 4 months, especially since he's left BB staking, like he's kind of, or was it bit staking?
Bit B.
Okay. So, okay.
You were there.
Yeah. He's like been free to speak, which is like what he said initially when he left. He's like, oh, like now I'm free to talk.
Yeah.
And he's been talking, you know?
Yeah. I think like the underlying messaging of that thread that he put out is accurate, and we see it in other elements of life. I just think that like he kind of hastily worded it where he put a big emphasis on the downside and kind of like was a little flippant about the upside of community. We see this with religion all the time. What he's really talking about is dogma, right? So whenever you demonstrate, or I should say, whenever you build out a community that is going to have an inherent hierarchy, and almost all communities will, right? There are going to be community leaders. There are going to be those that are active in the community, and then there are going to be community lurkers. As that happens, an inherent pride for that community occurs. Right? You saw it on the onset of the show. Like, I'm proud as fuck to be from Pittsburgh and to be a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
But it's silly.
Same
it's
with
nonsense. But yeah, but it,
from DR.
As far as like human traits go, it's silly, because it implies that there's some sort of elitism to aligning yourself in this particular way versus that particular way. Right. It creates a right and wrong. But yeah, anytime this hierarchical structure begins, now whatever the leaders are messaging towards the collective starts to steer in the direction of dogma. And what I think he was trying to point out is that then creates a very high level of toxicity whenever the rest of the collective isn't really free to think and act as they see fit. And it's not that they're not free to, but it's that the alignment and pride into the community doesn't allow them to, right? Because disagreeing with people that you idolize, whether that's God in a religion, or whether that is a celebrity in a community, or whether that is a professional in a community, whatever the case may be, we kind of like don't acknowledge the limited scope of what their message offers. And I think
professional, you're saying?
The professional, the deity, the celebrity, whatever.
I get it.
It's all flawed, right? Because even like from the deity standpoint, like let's for argument's sake say that the entire universe believes in one solo God and we all operate under sort of some sect of religion. The issue is that like none of us have actually communicated with this God. So the message is not actually being passed down from the top. It's a giant game of telephone where man made some sort of message at the top and have now dispersed it out, right? And with each layer that it comes down, the translation is getting off more and more and more. We see this in diet and nutrition a lot, where experts all think something collectively, right? I think all experts in nutrition would agree collectively that a whole foods, well-balanced diet is going to be pretty healthy, right? Whether they think that's the most optimal or not doesn't really matter, right? But they can start with the baseline of these micronutrients are necessary for all human beings, right? But the problem is, as that information gets understood at the top and it's complex and nuanced, it gets simplified now as it gets passed down layer by layer. And by the time it gets to the bottom, it's if it fits your macros, bro.
Bet 30% on all boards.
Right. Right. We see it a ton, obviously, in this community, right?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna fight back a little bit. Okay. Because I do think that there is a little disrespect when some 1-2 players shoots their shot at you and be like, you played this bad. Like, I think that also is not a thing that should be done. Like,
well, the thing is generally speaking, when that's the case, it's because we're two different sects of the same community, right? So it would be like a Protestant yelling at a Catholic.
I see.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like it's very reasonable for a parishioner of Protestant religion to criticize the Pope because he has no alignment to the Pope, right?
Okay.
What you're not going to see is a parishioner of the Catholic religion criticizing the Pope.
I see.
Because that's his direct higher up. And I think like
so how does that connect here?
So like online versus live, for instance, right?
But if a 1-2 live player tells you that you played this hand bad at 5100,
yeah,
it feels as if that person is out of line or out of their lane. In a way.
Which is definitely true. I guess what I'm saying is that it's just likely that we don't like,
or you're just playing two different games.
You're qualifying it by stakes, and the reality is it's qualified differently by thought processes, right? Like there are going to be people who are contrarian, and then there are going to be people who are kind of going with the group. And it's like I'm generally going to fall on the line of contrarian. So if somebody is, following the path of whatever, like their favorite online guru or their favorite vlogger or whatever the case may be, it's very likely that it's going to not align with the way that I think, so they shoot their cross shot.
Got it.
But the whole point is that I think the whole point that Pads is trying to make is that when you get blinded by dogma, you can't really see the forest for the trees any longer. You're only able to see the information that's being spoon-fed to you.
I just don't like that term, like the forest for the trees. Like,
why?
The trees are in the forest.
That's the point. Do you not understand the analogy?
I don't know.
So it's a metaphor. You can't see the forest through. You can't see the forest for the trees. In other words, you can't see the big picture. You can only see each tree individually.
Because you're in the forest.
Yes.
So you have to be out of the forest in a helicopter.
Right.
Going over the trees.
Well, you don't. Sure. We could put it that way.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the difference between having a microscopic view of something versus like the 30,000 foot view.
So when you're in the forest, right?
Yeah.
Like you're looking up and all you see is trees.
Right.
But you can't see.
So you can't acknowledge that that's a forest.
You can only see the trees.
Yes.
But you're in the forest, though. I mean, I get it. Okay, I got it. Okay, you're in the forest.
You couldn't tell me where the boundary is. You couldn't tell me where the forest ends.
We don't know when the forest ends.
Right. Or begins.
Yeah. All we know is that there's a bunch of trees.
Yes.
And we could be literally right out. Like we could be like steps away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not that close because then we would actually see it.
Right.
But yeah. Okay.
That applies to strategy as well. When you're constantly dogmatic to the details of, you have to bet X, Y, or Z. You have to check X, Y, and Z, and it all applies in these very specific ways, right? You no longer see the bigger picture. You don't see the overall strategy.
Correct.
You just see the actual detail of or the mechanic.
Yeah, bet 30%.
Yeah.
Got it.
And it kind of reminds me, I was watching Moneyball the other day, and I hadn't watched it in a while, and I forgot how much A, I love baseball. God, do I love baseball. But B, how directly it correlates to the change that we saw in poker. I mean, Bill James's concept of digging deeper into the statistics of baseball and being able to measure talent that way is what PO was to poker, right? It's what mass data scraping and running it through, or mass data scraping and then utilizing the lens of solves over that data scrape. It's corollary, right? Baseball is one of the most statistical sports that we have, and it's one of the highest volume sports because they play 162 games a year over 30 teams, et cetera, et cetera. So it's this guy had the foresight to say I can analyze people without ever seeing them take a swing.
That's crazy, yeah.
And there's a scene where these old scouts are all in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
They're oh yeah, great kid. His girlfriend's a 6 though. I mean, that just screams lack of confidence. And we might pass on him for that. Or it's rock solid jaw. Really think he's gonna be a 5-tool player. And it's just they're going off of quite literally nothing. But I hate to dismiss it that much because the parallel really is there. It's what they're going off of had kind of demonstrated some level of success, maybe 66% success.
Yeah.
They could predict who was going to be good. And it's comparable to being alive. You can look somebody in the face and you could say I can already tell this guy doesn't have the chops. He doesn't study. I can tell you these 10 things about this person that's probably going to lead to him faltering, right? And oftentimes it's true, but it's only true to a degree of accuracy that's like, reasonable.
Remember, there was a scene I remember in like when Russell Thomas. No, was it Russell Thomas? Yeah. It was like the Russell Thomas documentary, right? That you were in, and you were like, I can tell.
Walk by a table.
Yeah, like I could walk by a table. Like, hold on, let me lay out the scene. You were like, I could walk by a table, and within minutes, I can tell you all their capabilities, all 8 of them.
All right, we'll play the clip because that's not what it said. But
no, don't play the clip. Just go by what I said. Like that's how it went. He's like, I could tell you everything.
I would say just walking by a random table, I would be able to tell you after 5 minutes most of the abilities and capabilities of each individual at the table.
I do think that that's still holds very true. Like it's easy to walk by a game and just tell if it's good or not. Yeah. What you can't tell is if you have an elite reg versus a shit reg.
Yeah.
You can just tell it's a reg. Right. And that was back in 2012. Everyone was a shit reg.
Yeah.
So it's like you just walk by and be like, yeah, nobody's a killer in this lineup. Like Benbo's not playing today. So like we're good.
That's funny. Sit. Yeah, man. What a wild thing. Okay, so then you're saying finish your thought with the money ball.
Well, just that like it revolutionized the game. So it was adapt or die in baseball. And baseball is one of the most traditional sports around. But we saw sabermetrics become just like a thing almost immediately. And now here we are 15 years later, and they're talking about adapting the rules in order to kind of fight back against all the statistical analysis. And I think poker is in a very similar boat, right? Like baseball is very, very close to banning shifts because left-handed players who were the most sought after athletes in the sport have all been rendered useless. The shift has basically just like taken away any sort of benefit there was to being a left-handed hitter.
What is a shift? Like so, the shift of the defense?
Yeah. So you take the left side of the infield and you just put them all on the right side.
Got it.
So now a lefty has to hit through 4 infielders or shallow outfielders, whatever the case may be, and their batting averages have plummeted. And you can't do the same to right-handed players because you need a first baseman. Yeah. Somebody has to be there to fill the out, right? So, they haven't been able to successfully shift as well against righties. You can move the second baseman behind, play like Rover a little bit, but you don't get to have that like shallow,
massive,
that shallow outfielder who's going to throw you out. And also it's a longer throw, right? So having somebody in short left field isn't really going to accomplish much. So the game had been built for centuries, really, well over 100 years. It had been built to be slightly advantageous to a lefty. And that was fine because lefties are only 10% of the world. Right. Yeah, they're so rare.
Lefty.
Weird. Our entire company is almost all left-handed. But yeah, so it's like a super rare commodity and it made people seek them out. But now quite the opposite happened where lefties have almost become like a bit of a detriment. And a lot of the reasons that they were sought after are no longer relevant. So it's just more about like putting them on the mound. And I think that like that, well, it also had something else come from it. So because lefties couldn't hit for average anymore, the launch angle was created. So the entire approach to a swing was basically remanufactured. And what they found was that by dipping ever so slightly and getting more into like a Griffey-like swing, which kind of mimics like what you would see on a softball field more than a baseball field, that long looping swing, they were hitting more for power. So they're hitting more home runs. And especially in a league where people are throwing harder and harder somehow every single year, this worked out really well. But what happened is the product that was like laid out on the field didn't benefit from the way that like it did during the juice ball era. Yeah. Because they were all just hitting bombs.
Right.
Strikeouts weren't increasing. But now what you're seeing is strikeouts are like through the roof and home runs are also increasing. So basically you're just getting a bunch of like games that are being played to a draw until someone hits a 3-run home run.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
All of the traditional strategy of baseball is just like thrown by the wayside. There's no more bunting. There's no more stealing. There's no more hitting, running. All this stuff is just gone because everybody's just playing for the 3-run home run.
That's so boring though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's what I'm saying is like the statistical analysis had changed the view of the game to such a drastic degree that they're actually considering like implementing rules. And I think poker is probably in the same spot right now with regards to RTA.
I could see all their talents.
You're an idiot.
It was a legendary clip, man.
Your ass is a legendary clip.
I'm just saying, it was a legendary clip. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Of course, follow us, subscribe. If you're listening to other platforms that's not YouTube, come on to YouTube. Hit us with a subscribe. We need the help, man. Actually, I want to thank Doug Polk because he gave us almost 10,000 views for this last one. So shout out to him. I hope he does not great against Daniel, but if he does well, either way, I'm glad. I picked up 1,000 followers. We picked up some subscribers. It's all good. It's all good. I hope you all enjoyed the show. This is episode number 15 of the Solve For Why Vlogcast. Christian Soto and Matt Berkey. Good luck. And I hope you know all the talents of all
Episode 20.
It was 20? What'd I say?
15.
It's been a long week, man. It's been a long week. Watch episode 16, 17, 18, and 19 before you watch this one.
Sure.
Good night.
You are not above me. I bet you wish you was me. I know it, I know.